Welcome to another episode of Distory, and tonight we're going back to the late 90s to the start of a brand new overlay in 1997. It's a Small World holiday. So this is an exciting one for me because, again, this is kind of like the Osborne Lights. I never got to experience it, but it gives me hope that maybe I'll get out there during this, and it's super, super exciting. So with me, as always, is the well-researched, well-renowned, world-sold global author, Kate, the Disney sister. You're on Amazon. It's everywhere. Kate, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, no, I'm good. It's so funny when we were debating what we wanted to do for this Christmas season, and this topic came up, and I was like, how much is there really to say about this? And then I started researching, and man, I went down so many rabbit holes. I was like, there's a lot. So,
well, don't you think every single historical episode we find random things? You know what catches me, especially if it's attraction based, is one sign or one word or one painting, and then now I'm trying to figure out how that ties in. Or sometimes I just like to look up the history of something because I'm like, you know what, I've never looked that up. That actually happened to me twice on this episode. I think I have something really fun that I know you don't have. I know it's a primary source, and you're going to probably use it in a future TikTok, and I'm excited about that.
Well, I'm excited because I think I have something that you've never heard of before either. And so I know this is going to be an episode of surprises. So
I like it.
Just perfect for Christmas. So, I was thinking about the structure of this episode, and I'm guessing we kind of talk about how it came to be as an overlay. We're not going to get into the history of Small Worlds because that is so long.
It's a lot. I actually thought that we could do maybe a 3-minute. How did we get Small Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, just a quick little breeze past it. But there's the background of Small World is a multi-part series because
it is not. So literally we could do it in 4 sentences. Go ahead, Kate.
I would know. No, but I'm excited. So I thought, so let's start there then. Let's start with where did Small World come from?
So I would go with the very, very brief is that this was not an opening day attraction. No, it was not. This was created for the New York World's Fair back in 1964. So this was in conjunction with Pepsi Cola, and originally this wasn't even called It's a Small World. Mm-mm. It was called Children of the World, sponsored by Pepsi. And then it's not until the Sherman Brothers write the world famous earworm, It's a Small World, that Walt Disney falls in love with the name, and that it finally gets renamed to Pepsi Cola presents Walt Disney's It's a Small World. And there's some big innovations here. We've talked about these kind of briefly in other episodes, but when they build this structure, there's lots of it's almost like the best of the best Imagineers, because you're talking about Mary Blair, Mark Davis, Raleigh Crump.
Yeah, Alice
Lane
Davis.
Gibson, Alice Davis. Yeah, it's an insane cast of characters who built
Joyce
this.
Carlson also was a big person for that too.
We also gained the innovation of high-capacity boat rides that gets patent from this. Again, this is a sponsor for just the World's Fair. But this was not an opening day attraction. This was just for the World's Fair, but it was so well received that they decided to bring it to Disneyland, and that was in 1966, May 28, 1966, Small World opens its doors to the world. And we don't get a holiday overlay.
Wait, can you pause there for just a second?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Please, sure.
So, I just want to say there was something Christmas in that Small World attraction in the 1964 World's Fair, because they sold these little stockings.
Oh, that's
as
fun.
Souvenirs that says It's a Small World at Christmas, and shows 2 little children and some snowflakes and whatnot. So
Small World the stocking, Small World the magnet, Small World the merchandising. They did make a rather large pamphlet too. It was a 24 I have this from Marty Sklar. This is just about in general, but when they were creating this and they were selling at the World's Fair, they had written and produced a 24-page souvenir book that was sold at the fair because Walt wanted to showcase and thank the team for their extraordinary accomplishment. Because, again, it was just such a team of so many great Imagineers.
Yeah. And we'll have some more history of this, I think, tucked into this episode as we go. I feel like some.
No, we won't. We're talking about history of holidays and holidays only.
But I didn't want to get too in the weeds of its history because there's so much of just the holiday overlay. So at some point on Distory, we're going to have to do a Small World series because it's so iconic and it's so important to Disney's history and all of their attractions and how they developed. So that being said,
the rule of thumb is if a major corporation will pay for a ride, it's a great way to test, experiment, and then bring it back to your park.
That is very smart. Have somebody else pay for it.
Yeah, why would you pay for it? I mean, that's the reason why so many of our attractions don't get refurbed is because they don't have, I mean, it's the
sponsors.
Whole reason why, I mean, we've had pavilions shut down indefinitely because of lack of sponsorship. So,
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the holidays.
Okay.
Sorry. Segueing us.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about how this overlay came about. Like, what was the impetus behind it? And basically, Disneyland wanted to boost their holiday ticket sales. That was the main thing. And you have to think about it like, these days we think about Disney and we think it's always crowded in the holidays. It's always slammed. It's like all these things. But that's not always how it was in Disney's history. If you go back in, 1950s, they were incentivizing people to come to the parks like they did for Halloween. They gave away free pumpkins and then people could bring them back carved and then they would get a free ticket into Disneyland. They were trying to get people to go to Disneyland in the off season. They also didn't have, for many years, they weren't open 7 days a week. They were only open, Tuesday through Sunday or even Wednesday through Sunday because they just couldn't afford to operate. So even in like the late 80s and into the 90s, it wasn't like it is now where people consistently came every day of the year. And so they were trying to incentivize people to come. So they decided to do a holiday overlay of one of their favorite rides. So I have a quote that's from Creative Entertainment Director Steve Davidson that says, "We found the guests like the idea of seeing an attraction enhanced. They relive their old memories of the ride while making new ones from the holiday version. Plus, guests treat the classic ride with ownership. They want to come and see what you've done to their ride. Disneyland has that effect on people." I did pull that quote also when we did the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay as well. Same kind of thing there. People want to see, like, what did they do to my favorite ride? So,
yeah. Also, similarly, as we had talked about sponsorships, during this time period, there's a changeover from Bank of America to Mattel and then eventually to Siemens. But that Mattel crossover is another reason why there was a purpose to add some life to an attraction because nobody just wants to like take over the old attraction. It's the same reason why the People Mover is no longer the Tomorrow Transit Authority People Mover. It's just called the People Mover by Enterprise, and we get a new audio track is because you want to interject the Enterprise messaging in there and have it plussed or a little bit added to it, a little bit of spice for the new sponsor. That's exactly what Holiday kind of provided.
Yeah. Although this change, I think, was a really wonderful one. Although some of the other sponsorship changes we see is like, maybe that wasn't as great as this one. I'll just say that.
Yeah. This is fantastic.
So I do have a Los Angeles Times article from around this time that says, for the first time since it opened 31 years ago, the park's It's a Small World attraction will be altered extensively to celebrate the Yuletide season. So this is from 1997 when this article is written. It says, basically, we'll be adding a Christmas overlay to the existing ride, said Michael Maines, Director of Entertainment Creative Development.
I would suggest reading this paragraph, the planned enhancements to the 12-minute ride.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. Planned enhancements to the 12-minute ride, originally designed especially for small children, included choirs singing Jingle Bells and Deck the Halls instead of the traditional It's a Small World, and exhibits from various countries illustrating traditional children's games and crafts. Animal topiaries will be outfitted with Santa Claus hats and red bows, and a 30-foot clock on the entrance will have a giant Santa hat, which has become extremely iconic for the time period. And also, like, that face means nothing in Walt Disney World and everything in Disneyland. It's so unique how iconic that is. The building facade will also be lighted like a giant marquee with tens of thousands of Christmas lights. Maine said he would not disclose how much Disneyland would spend on the enhancements. Yeah, nobody wants to know how much your sponsor actually paid you to make this thing happen.
True. Yeah, so I think what's really important to listen to there is the idea that the decorations are meant to be like homemade crafts, because they really leaned into Mary Blair's style in this. And they're just like, okay, she did a lot of kind of like very precious designs, things that like almost like children would make, like would cut out of paper and things like that. You can think of that, you know, of course, done in Mary Blair's style, but it's very much an arts and crafts kind of ride. And with dolls, right? So they leaned into that really heavily for all of the things that they did in every country, leaning into the traditions of the homemade crafts in those countries, which we'll get into as we go through the ride.
Yeah, and I do love that they were sensitive to each one culture, and I think they appropriately are blending a mix of traditions, whether it's holiday or otherwise, because some of it is just This is the reason why it's not called Christmas. It's called holidays, because some things are just New Year's celebrations. So I think that's cool as well.
Yeah, I agree. So do we want to just start outside and just kind of work our way through it scene by scene here?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, outside. I mean, there's lots of little things, but all the concepts are kind of integrated with what it looks like. So looks like you've got a classic one shot of the outside there before they repainted it back to kind of its like original colors. So those are the colors it is in like Tokyo and Paris. Like you can see my ears that I'm wearing here. It has these kind of bright colors.
This is from January 1998. So this would have been still, even though we said it started in 97, it extended all the way into the new year. So this was the very first year that they had run this.
Yeah. So this is the exterior. I had a little bit of facts here. They had 50,000 lights on the facade of Small World, and it took 2 dozen cast members to decorate the interior of the attraction in 18 days, while the exterior is transformed over 8 weeks.
It's pretty impressive that they were able to do this with. I feel like it's not that many people with not that much time. And I feel the same way about Jingle Cruise, although this one is way more extensive with the lighting.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And if you look back at those historical photos, they didn't have these extra kind of white lights that twinkle on it, which you can't see from the still photo, but the white ones kind of twinkle all throughout the attraction. They didn't have that back in the beginning. They just had lights that were on the facade.
Yeah, and it's saying there's like 350,000 mini lights around the trees, hedges, and animal topiaries later on, not originally. It was just those original 50,000 on the facade. So it's like, this reminds me of the Osborne lights. You start out a little and you just keep adding thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands. And in their case, in the Osborne lights, millions.
Yeah. Yeah. They do have the clock, of course, gets that iconic hat, which we talked about. And I have the blueprints for that, which is real fun.
Oh, that's cool.
From 1997. So you can see what this looks like. So that is the clock. I actually have another part of it too that you can see what it looks like for the full thing. And this is the flat will rock back and forth with clock face is what the words say that are next to this. But that's what the original blueprints look like from 1997.
Creepy. No, I'm just kidding. I like him. He's not as creepy as the sun. The sun's way creepier.
Now, wait a minute. This is really fun because it has, this is the original model for it, the clock.
Oh, good. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Gosh, they didn't go with that. For those that are looking, it's like hot magenta, like an off-colored green, almost lime green with a carrot nose and a shoelace mouth. It's horrifying. It
So
looks like a poorly depicted jester.
yeah, and it's got little hands pointing to the face too. It's really
Okay.
interesting. But you know what's funny about this is that this is what Raleigh Crump designed for the
Well, that
clock.
makes sense.
Yeah, very makes so much sense when you put it in context that way. And they, when he presented it, Dick Nunes was like, "What is that? Like, we can't use that. That's horrifying." Basically, your reaction. And Walt Disney said, "I like it. We're going to use it." And so
Yeah, they just needed
that's why we had
to
it.
tweak the coloration and color scheme. But yeah, it is very scary. But also, like, I think about the time period, right? Think about all the claymation, holiday films and everything that were very popular then that have lots of weird depicted creatures and things. So it's not like off-brand for the time period
No,
or when
not at all.
they built this in the 60s.
And I went down the rabbit hole with this, and I found so many interesting facts about how this facade was made and all this stuff, but we don't have time to get into it here. But let's just say that the facade is not 100% Mary Blair. It's like 40%, 35% Raleigh Crump. So basically she had a hard time getting some of her pieces into 3D, like because she didn't think that way. She thought more in like 2D. And so he had a couple of pieces. He's like, "Well, here's what you could do with this." And she just kind of like put them in her model as is. And he's like, "Oh, that's what we're doing. Okay." And so there's bits and pieces of this that are actually very much Raleigh Crump that is not Mary Blair, which I always think is really interesting because everybody assumes the entire facade is Mary Blair. But I won't get into more of that because we could talk about that for an hour and we got stuff to do. So anyway, that's the clock.
That's cool. I didn't know that about that.
Yeah.
Coming to a TikTok short near you.
There's other things that are around the area too. I think the amazing thing about this attraction is it's not just the facade that lights up, which is gorgeous in itself, but it's also everything in the area around it also lights up. So the entire all the food kiosks and the toy shop that's there and all of the lampposts and everything all have these decorations on it, which is really neat. And I did have this was something that was on like a lamppost for around there. They have these little signs that used to be there in 1997. So it says it's a small world and has a North Pole on the top and it says Happy Holidays. And there's a bigger version there for the what's on the lampposts as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Those are fun that you found those blueprints. Very neat.
Yeah. There's not that many out there for this. So it was fun to challenge to find them, I guess. Do you have, besides the lights on the topiaries and whatnot, do you have anything else that you want to talk about outside?
No, I want to go inside.
Okay. Let's do it. So let's head into what they call the hello room or the welcome room. And that is where it has a giant sign that says Happy Holidays. I'm guessing you have the historical one in there. Your collection.
Okay, so I don't like any of the videos back then. So what I noticed is when I watched the 97 versus last year's, there are subtle differences. There's not a lot.
Well,
They haven't really changed too much. There's a couple of like big ones, big pieces that they added, like the snowman but yeah, no, like this whole front scene's pretty similar.
yeah, they kind of updated, like maybe repainted some things and freshened up some stuff. But some of these scenes, you're right, are very similar to the way they were there. Some of them are completely different. So it depends on what room you're in, if they're the same. But what you see here is cutouts of presents, toys, gingerbread men, kids with Christmas balloons, Santa sleigh, and bells, and those spinning snowflakes. I want to pause there for just a second because these are so important to this story. So if you guys know about Raleigh Crump, he is the one who did all of the kinetic structures and the toys in Small World. So he's the one that did anything that moves, is spinning in particular. That's all Raleigh Crump's work. So you can think of like the ones you see on the outside of the structure that are covered in gold leaf and that they're spinning, those little propellers and whatnot. So these snowflakes are very much like Raleigh Crump-esque, if you could say. So I have a little thing about like where he got that design, like how he kind of came up with all those propellers. Why propellers, I guess, is the question. So I have a little story from him. He said, one day while visiting Wathel Rogers in his office, Raleigh noticed a small propeller made from an eraser clip taken from one of the animation pencils, which Wathel balanced on a pushpin. The propeller would slowly spin, and Raleigh became immediately intrigued with it. I asked Wathel, how did you make that? And he would say, it's a secret, I can't tell you. I got fed up and decided to try and figure it out on my own. I used a nail to make a dent in one of my eraser clips and tried to balance it on the pushpin, but it wouldn't balance properly, and I can't even tell you how many pencils I've ruined trying to figure out how to make that propeller. Finally, Wathel agreed to sell me the secret for a penny, which I happily forked over. He told me the secret was to use a ballpoint pen instead of a nail. The ballpoint pen made a smooth and rounded dent, which let the eraser clip balance properly when it spun. So Raleigh would then try to outdo his friends at the studio, building larger and more intricate propellers, which I actually have pictures of some of the ones he built here. So he used paper, string, sticks, or whatever else he could find. He said, I put these propellers in my art show at Disney Studio. And one day, Walt Disney saw them. In 1959, Walt remembered my propellers when he decided to bring me over to WED Imagineering. Those propellers helped start my career with the Disney parks, and I've always said that the first pencil changed my life forever.
That's fun.
But, yeah, I just thought it was a really special little story about giving a little bit more context as to why we see so many spinning things in Small World, and that would be why. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we see beyond that?
Yeah, this is kind of like a precursor again. So we're seeing some lots of presents that Santa would be bringing to kids as we're heading towards the North Pole. So you do see some toy soldiers, some castles. There's also a lion all the way in the far off back and a train. So there's like a train car that's like carting animals, which I thought was cool too.
Yeah, that is cool.
Mm-hmm. And then although this version doesn't have it, before we move into the North Pole room, the bells weren't ringing this year, but originally these, again, a part of that kinetic, the bells would rock back and forth. And those that are listening, these were two-dimensional flats that were painted in various like patterns and designs, and they would kind of look like they were swaying. Also, there was I just saw a little Mickey on this holly.
Yeah. It seems like from what I've researched, they've just kind of decided maybe those things don't need to happen, or like they're just this kind of like simplified things over the years, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's because of budget or just because they decided they didn't like, oh, that one is swinging.
Yeah.
See it? So as we head in here, we are going to Scandinavia, which they've turned into the North Pole. Now that up there at the top, that's Father Frost, which is a 24-foot model. And I did find the blueprints for this one too, which makes me so happy. Looks like this. And it says on the words there, it says, winter winds are mylar flecks with twinkle light outlines. And wind section has moving light sections that will be programmed. Note all twinkle lights spaced on 1-inch centers. All snowflakes outlined in twinkle lights mounted onto silver mylar. And then it has metallic spinners on the bottom, which I don't think I've ever noticed before I did this. So it goes by really fast.
Yeah. There's, much like the entire attraction normally, take a very chaotic, so many small little tiny details and amplify them by easily 3. And that's kind of what you get here. So it's an overload of the senses because they're adding to an already complex, highly detailed set pieces.
Yeah. Well, and do you want to talk about Santa's house?
No, I don't know anything about it. So what do you got? What do you got on Santa's house?
I mean, you also hear Santa like
talking
I couldn't saying ho ho ho.
See, that's the thing. I couldn't tell if that was this Frost guy because I didn't get a good audio of it. I was about to ask you if it was this gentleman talking.
No, he's just blowing wind.
Okay.
He's not saying anything. He's busy making the frost.
I do have one thing I'll talk about when we get there, but yeah, okay, fair enough. What else do you got?
I mean, that's it. The only other thing that's really different besides these big flashing snowflakes you see on either side is this North Pole house with Santa. It has I actually tried to listen to what he was saying, and it was really hard. I found a few different places that it said, like, he says names of children that you could try to listen for your name. I've never heard names in there, so I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
But he does say things, and then you see him check. I think that's why he's in the window. He's checking his list twice because it's
Well,
like
I
naughty and
mean,
nice.
wouldn't you?
Yeah. And then the mailbox has letters to Santa in it as well. So that's definitely a different part of this overlay that we don't normally have the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have for this room except for the sign above the door. Do you have anything else?
I have information about the sign above the door.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's
So
segued nicely to that.
you can see in the background, it's like a Canadian Mountie. And then up here, it looks like, and it's not, I actually know how to pronounce it, but it looks like Joyeux Fetis, right?
No.
It's not at all. It's French. But it's over this Canadian part, and they added a little Santa hat to the moose. But it actually is Joyeux Fête.
Joyeux Fête.
Joyeux Fête just means like happy holidays, or a generic end of the year kind of, French Canadian, which I thought was cool. They do this in all the rooms, and I definitely went on a few too many rabbit trails with them, but it was fun in a good way.
Me too.
Yay!
Shall we move into the next room, into Europe here?
Let's do it. Now,
Okay.
Europe, what I love culturally they brought in here is it's not all like actual lights. And I'm sure you looked this up. How is everything illuminated, Kate?
I didn't look that up. I was busy with other things. Tell us.
Really? So,
Yeah.
they don't have the once we get underneath this season's greetings section, everything is illuminated via candles. And that's more traditional European. So that's what they wanted to use, is less like twinkly lights and use more actual candles to give this kind of like yellowish hue and glow. But before we get there, is there anything about the toy soldiers?
Underneath the guards with the black bearskin hats, which they're only wearing that because the English beat Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo, and they took their black bear hats, and that's why the English wear these big black fur hats, just in case you didn't know that. And Mary Blair wanted to make them blue, but they said, no, they have to be black because otherwise you don't acknowledge that battle happened. So anyway, these guys, underneath them, there's Happy Holidays is written there. And then something really interesting that's also draped underneath them and then also kind of up over the bridge is a paper chain. And I tried not to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I was like, did paper chains come from the UK? They sure did. In the 1850s was where paper chains first came from. So we have the English to thank for the paper chain countdown tradition.
Is there... Okay, so how many days would they put down? Would it be for the entire month of December? I've never done this as do you celebrate using paper chains?
Yeah, like you count down for 25 days till Christmas. At least that's what we did for our kids. You can see it right under the Happy Holidays. There is a paper chain. And yeah, you would just take one loop off for every day as you count down towards Christmas. Have you never done this with your kiddos?
We've only done we've done paper chains, but it's usually like countdowns until like days of school are done, and like Mel will let the kids like cut the ones off. But no, we've never done it for Christmas. We've done we one time had, or maybe 2 years in a row, but it's like really it's a lot to manage, and Mel did an incredible job. But it was like all these little stockings, and every day it would have like 2 little small things in the stockings to count down, so they could pull down one stocking a day. So that's how we kept track when they were really, really little. Now we don't do anything.
Now you should have them make their own chain because they're old enough now.
Chains, yeah,
have them do it, and you do red and green, and you alternate, or red, 2 colors and you alternate. That's what
they would love. That they would think that's fun.
Yeah.
You got plenty of time.
I have a comment over here that is saying, so this whole time the big hats were just the Brits throwing shade. Yeah, basically it's them like saying, we conquered you, French people.
Yeah.
And we're going to wear these hats forevermore because the hats belong to the French army. Yeah. They took them off the French army and put them on. So that's what happened there. But talking about some more guards, let's talk about the two ceremonial guards that are on either side of the Tower Bridge, not the London Bridge. Those are yeoman warders who are protectors of the Tower of London, which I got to go to a couple months ago, which is for the second time, which is really fun. They're also known as beef eaters because they ate the king's leftovers, and it was pretty rare that people of lower classes got to actually eat meat because it was very expensive back then. So the fact that they got to eat this really great beef because they ate what was ever left over on the king's plate, that's why they're called beef eaters, not because they tested it to see if it was poisoned, which is another.
Yeah, I always thought that they were like the testers, the taste testers, to make sure that he wasn't going to die.
No, I've one of the beef eaters actually told us this story while we were there. So they're just like, this is why we're called this. And I was like, oh, well, there you go. I believed the wrong thing my whole life. So there you are.
Was beef like a scarcity thing in terms of like, you know what I mean? Like, would that be more of a
wealthy people?
Right,
like,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was a perk of the job, was you got to eat the king's scraps, and
Nice.
a lot of the time it was beef. So they were called beef eaters. So the beef eaters are often represented in Christmas ornaments and whatnot. So that's what makes them a little Christmassy. I found this, I was laughing because I was literally just at Westminster Abbey, and this is like from their gift shop. It shows a little beef eater ornament. They just look Christmassy because they're wearing this really bright ceremonial garb that's red and with gold accents. So lots of people use them for Christmas ornaments and whatnot. So just thought I'd mention them.
But they're there all the time, right?
Yeah, they're there all the time guarding the London Bridge, which is right next to the Tower of London. Which is why they're located there. But you do see that paper chain is strung up above the season's greetings sign that's hanging from the tower as well. The Christmas tree has 150 giant candles, which is a Western European tradition of lighting candles and putting them on the tree, which likely came from 16th century Protestant reformer Martin Luther. He was said to be the first one that added candles to his tree. It's very much like a German tradition that you would attach candles to the tree with like wire. Oh. Not particularly safe, so don't recommend doing this in your home. But he says that he came up with the idea because he was walking home one winter evening while composing a sermon, and he was awed by the brilliance of stars twinkling amidst the evergreens. To recapture the scene for his family, he put up a tree in the main room and wired its branches with lighted candles. And so that would be where we get the tradition of putting Christmas lights on our tree.
That's so fun.
Mm-hmm. I also have something about the figures that you see. You can see one that's right there on the right is a little mouse king. And then a little bit further down is Marie.
Is this like the Nutcracker?
Oh, yes. And I have a little story for this. And the Nutcracker is very near and dear to my heart because it is...
Did you perform this?
I did. I did a couple times. I was actually a rat in the Nutcracker. 2 years
this
in a row.
This may be... I always knew it. I've thought it a lot and never spoken.
Oh,
how much.
Hey. You see how rat-like I can be.
Listen, Ratigan is one of my favorite villains, so it's clear.
No, I got to perform with the Oregon Ballet Theater in Portland for a couple of years. I was in their children's cast back in my pre-professional ballerina days. So Nutcracker is like super dear to my heart as a tradition, but even more so, I love that it's only popular in America because of Disney. And most people don't know this. The Nutcracker was not popular in America before the 1950s, okay? There was pretty much nobody had heard of it. It was popular in Russia with a completely different choreography. So what happened was George Balanchine, who is the choreographer of the most popular version of the Nutcracker, he came to visit Disney Studios with Leopold Stokowski in 1939, 1940, when they were developing Fantasia, right? So he was consulting about the Rite of Spring because he had choreographed a ballet to that. And of course, Disney was putting that in Fantasia. So he was there browsing the studio and seeing what they're doing. And he was looking at all of these storyboards by animator or storyboard artist, rather, Sylvia Holland. And he was just really struck by all of the tiny fairies that only the women animators did at Disney Studios, because the men thought the fairies were beneath them, essentially, because they were too dainty. So all of these beautiful fairies that look kind of like ballerinas, he was seeing all of this and then being reminded, because he was Russian, of the music of his youth. And it inspired him so much that he went on to choreograph. This is a little scene of the snowflakes from Fantasia. But then he went on to choreograph an entire ballet set to the same music that is in Fantasia. And you can see here, this is a scene from George Balanchine's Nutcracker. Very, very similar in feeling to that. And I love what was really very telling for this was in 1940, Deems Taylor, who was the composer, who was the MC for Fantasia, said, "It's a series of dances taken out of a full-length ballet called the Nutcracker. It wasn't much of a success, and nobody performs it nowadays." Which, if the Nutcracker is like a tradition for you, you probably just gasped. You're like, what? That's how it was before he was inspired by all of this happening at Disney Studios. And he went back to New York City Ballet, and 15 years later, they debuted the 1954 production of the Nutcracker. And then it became a hit. Everybody wanted to come see it, so they made it an annual tradition, and then it spread throughout the whole country, and now we have the Nutcracker today. So
that's crazy.
Sorry, I went down a big rabbit hole with that one, because Nutcracker.
Yeah, but that makes sense. That's I was gonna say that's very nostalgic for you, and something I wouldn't pick out, because I didn't know that those guys weren't always there, because I just see a Rat King. I'm like, I don't know, it's UK. You know, one thing I do want to bring out, and I need your olfactory senses here to help me out. Yeah. There are 5 scents in this attraction, but right now here in this European section, we should be probably, I'm assuming, the first scent, pine. Are we getting pine here because of the tree?
Pine. Yeah.
And now that's not something that starts out in 1997. They add this later in like 2008-ish when Soarin' scents were super popular. So I love the fact that they took something that was really popular in one attraction and added it. And I will tell you, scent immersion adds a whole level. When I went on Snow White's Enchanted Wish, the gooseberry pie, you had me at hello.
I love the gooseberry
pie. It's such
a
great addition. It really is.
I know. I feel like they should have scents and more attractions, honestly. I'm a little sad that they don't.
I am a crazy person, because I gauge haunted houses not only on scares and thematics and story, but on scents, because a lot of them use like a generic kind of like murky, musty, but there's so many other scents that you can pull on it. I have to admit, there was in SeaWorld, in the Carnival Pier, which was like a spooky, scary clown carnival, they had a popcorn stand that was pushing out fog, and it smelled like buttered popcorn. I thought that was a little subtle. I was like, good for you guys. That's like a great little addition. Scents make a big deal. That we have 5 of them. Let's use them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they do at some point in the Europe scene, and I'm trying to remember where, they do introduce peppermint as well. But it's been a year since I've been on this. I haven't gotten to this year. So
I think the peppermint is coming up, and I do have some stuff about candy. So
great.
Yeah.
Before we get there, I just want to mention just what's on the other side. We don't have to get into this too much, but in the France area, they do have a usually the year is listed up there, and then they have Bonne Année, which is Happy New Year in French as well. So and then they have a New Year's baby hanging above the year.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So just a little New Year's nod, which we do see in this as well. So it's not just like Christmas. It really is truly like happy holidays, as we have Christmas and we have New Year's as well. So, All right, on to the candy, my friend.
On to the candy, yeah.
Tell us your candy tales.
Come on, little children, come into my gingerbread house. The first thing you notice when you're going into here is you're probably going to realize that this is not in English, right? This is actually in Dutch. And this means Merry Christmas in Dutch. And I knew it was Dutch when I heard the pronunciation, because some of Mel's friends are from Denmark. and there's lots of like in like Dutch language. So I have a song that sings Merry Christmas with this word because I'm not gonna, or this phrase, and I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it. So here is a little bit of some Dutch Merry Christmas.
I'm ready.
Ik wens je een vrolijk kerstfeest. Ik wens je een vrolijk kerstfeest. Ik wens je een vrolijk kerstfeest en een gelukkig nieuwjaar. Zing samen dit lied en kijk elkaar aan. Ik wens je een vrolijk kerstfeest en een gelukkig nieuwjaar. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
So there you go. Again, lots of.
I was hoping you would sing it.
No, I can't sing. It's lots of the. I always felt like they have crazy tongue twisters in Denmark too, and they all sound like this. It's like the and you're like, bro, I can't even say anything.
No,
Like,
we didn't even try when we went there. I was like, nope, English is mine.
Now, another thing that's up here that just kind of made me, I was like, you know what, this iconography wise, I don't think you really eat ribbon candy any other time of year. So I did go down a little tiny rabbit trail with ribbon candy. Ribbon candy was created in the 1800s for candy shops to put in their windows. And they were originally molded by hands. So if somebody would press out and flatten hard candy, and then they would put it into these ribbons, and using their hands would mold them into this fun shape. And they would use it to line their windows to give them like a festive, cool color. And they also were flavored just like candy canes in a peppermint flavor. And eventually ribbon candies end up becoming synonymous with that red and white and green, which are all colors of Christmas, which I thought is cool. But I mean, these things have been around forever, and they sell the most in North America during the Christmas season. They also have citrus and mint flavors, which I've never eaten ribbon candy, but from the looks of it, it's very brittle and it like snaps and breaks, but it comes from Europe, and it's a tradition that's been around since the 1800s.
That's so funny because I didn't even notice the ribbon candy. I went directly to the gingerbread house. So my info was all about the gingerbread house.
See, isn't that like great? Like I looked at it and I was like, why would they put ribbon candy behind there? Like I never thought of it. So yeah, there you go. Such is life.
So I have just a little bit of information about the gingerbread house, which has 2 kids on either side that are gingerbread children. And then they also have a cuckoo clock in the middle, very much going into this part of the country, or part of the world rather, that makes cuckoo clocks, like Germany and whatnot. So hard gingerbread cookies, sometimes gilded with gold leaf and shaped like animals, was a staple at medieval fairs in England, France, Holland, and Germany. So gingerbread's very much from like this area of the world. Queen Elizabeth I is credited with the idea of decorating the cookies in this way after she had some made to resemble dignitaries visiting her in court. So if you think of like gingerbread people,
dude, what a sicko, man. She was like, oh, I had some friends over, I'd love to eat them.
Did she make it for them? Like, I think she made it for them.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe
even
she just
better.
did to resemble them.
I made you a cookie that looks exactly like you. Now eat it. Eat yourself. What? Do it. I made them.
So over time, some of the festivals became known as gingerbread fairs, and the gingerbread cookies served there were known as fairings. The shapes of the gingerbread changed with the season, including flowers in the spring and birds in the fall, et cetera, et cetera. They also had elaborately decorated gingerbread became synonymous with all things fancy and elegant in England. But the gingerbread houses themselves actually originated in Germany during the 16th century. And they didn't become popular until the Brothers Grimm made the story of Hansel and Gretel.
There you go.
We get gingerbread.
Doesn't that make sense? See, I was getting all creepy with a reason. I was already the old hag already.
She is. She's like terrifying too. She's like, get in there. Oh, sorry. She was like, get in there, children.
Kids, you don't look normal. You know, just saying.
Oh gosh.
Fun fact, too, I learned this while I was watching the creation of the gingerbread carousel. There are 2 different types of gingerbread in Walt Disney World. There is Austrian gingerbread. Actually, technically, there's 3. There's Austrian gingerbread and there's German gingerbread. The Austrian gingerbread is thicker. It's a little bit more bread-like and like crumbly. And then it is not iced, where the German, which you'll get the Austrian style at the Grand Floridian, and then you'll get the German style at the Beach Club at their carousel one. And it's got like a little bit of this like icing on top. And that's the way I prefer it. It's delicious. And then if you go to the contemporary, it's kind of like a combination of the 2. So it's that thicker style gingerbread, which is Austrian, but it is glazed like the Germans. But they all use different spicing too. So I think that's really cool. It's also really fun to see the creations that they do for these things. So I love that tradition of gingerbread still is a holiday and still is celebrated. And they keep expanding in Walt Disney World, because we have at Animal Kingdom Lodge, they added a giraffe a couple of years ago, and now we have a giraffe and a zebra made out of gingerbread as well, which is fun.
A whole menagerie.
There's so many animals that I would also like to eat, said the queen.
Well, that's not as creepy as like the... you already eat animals.
I get.
Way creepier.
Yeah, but like you don't eat zebra and giraffe, but I would.
All right. So the only other thing I have for this area, I do notice that the kids that are in the tulips
look good enough to eat.
Lollipops, and there's lollipops hanging from the ceilings. There's just a lot of candy in this area, and
no dentists or toothbrushes.
And I was looking up for the Italy section. It just has like hard candies that are strung in a garland, and it does have some baked goods and stuff hanging from the ceiling. But
if they wanted to really capture Italy's essence, they would have the bright green leaf cookies and the pink leaf cookies that as soon as you eat them, they turn into sand. That's really says Christmas for me.
The sand cookies.
You didn't eat those as a kid? Do you know what I'm talking about? Did you have anybody who put those out? I
eat like pecan snowballs and stuff, but those are like good. Those are good.
Those are good. Yeah, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about.
I've never had sand leaf cookies.
I don't think you
had those.
Okay, so these are like, these would come out at parties and whatnot. So yeah, they're
visual.
They're Merry Christmas like colors, like it's red and green, and they are straight garbage. They look awesome. You're like, oh my gosh, that would be so good. You know, it's got chocolate on it, and it's kind of looks like shortbread. Like,
literally never heard of this.
Oh my gosh!
And I have Italian ancestry. Like
no, like as an Italian, I grew up with these things, and every time, I kid you not, every time I would get one of these cookies, and I go, it's not going to be bad. It's not going to be bad. They're going to be good this year. And as soon as you put them in your mouth, it's like, seriously, it's like you went to the sandbox. It's awful. They're horrendous. I think you're supposed to dunk them.
Mental note.
And I never dunked them. But yeah, the Sans leaf cookies. I don't know the orange behind them, but yeah, they're fresh baked pistachio cookies. Maybe it's because it's like pistachio,
could be
almonds, flour, but you know, make them taste better.
I've never heard of those. Interesting.
So bad.
Not as people are saying they've never heard of them over here. And I feel like, I wonder if it's an Italian American thing versus an Italian thing. We'll have to do a little research on that, but.
What's the difference?
Well, there's definitely a difference.
I'm kidding. Italian leaf cookies. Yeah, I don't know what the origin is, but yeah, they're awful. They're so bad.
Alrighty. Well, shall we move on from the horrible cookies? Do you have anything else for Italy?
No, now I'm scarred. I'm mentally scarred thinking about these awful cookies as a kid. They'll still fool me. If you put them out now, I'll still eat one and be like, why do they do this? It looks so appealing.
The only other thing I have for this room is the sign that's in here in Germany that says, I'm going to say this wrong, Frohe Feiertag, which means happy holidays in German. I did my best. Sorry, German.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
And they also have gingerbread men cutouts too in this section, just because, you know, the gingerbread connection with all that history there. So
I'm surprised they don't have Stollen in there. You would think.
Yeah, they don't
'Cause
have
that's pretty
everything,
traditional. Yeah,
you know.
yeah, but
They
there's
have
so much candy and stuff in there. Like there's
yeah,
lots of
it's true.
traditional treats and things.
Yeah, I know. It's. I think they just picked and choose what they wanted, which is
Hmm.
interesting because we got to this section here, and where we're at now is India.
Which
Uh,
hang on, pause real quick. Probably back there, and I can't attest to it, but I'm assuming that's where peppermint. It probably goes from pine to peppermint in
yeah,
that last room.
yeah, which I think we already said probably. And
I don't know if we did, but anyway, doesn't matter. Keep going, moving right along.
moving right along. Um, So it's interesting in this India area because I was looking and I was like, where are the decorations here? I was trying to find them because I'm so used to like, I know it's there. There is like this one hanging lamp. There's like a couple lamps, but there's really not much there. And I don't have information direct about this. I have speculation that because they don't celebrate Christmas in those countries, maybe it is out of respect for those countries that they didn't add a ton of Christmas decorations to them. They do have their own holiday, though, called Diwali, which is like the Festival of Lights. Now I'm singing the song in my head from Adam Sandler. So here we are. But it's India's biggest and most important holiday of the year, and it gets its name from the row of clay lamps, the deepa, that the Indians light outside their homes to symbolize the inner light that protects them from spiritual darkness. It's just as important to the Hindus as the Christian holiday is of Christmas for Christians. So that we do see a lamp and stuff. We don't see a lot of like Diwali decorations though, which I think is
No,
interesting.
which is crazy to me because I used to work in the beer business and I would sell to the off premise, and we had lots of Indian owners. So for Diwali, to set myself apart, I would buy them Diwali candies. So they have like very specific snacks and treats for the holiday, and there's songs that go with it. There's also decorations. So it kind of seems like completely underserved in this area because, yeah, Diwali is, for all intents and purposes that I know it and recognize it as, is like the Indian New Year. And
Yeah.
a lot of our customers right after Christmas would take like January and February pretty much off. Like they wouldn't even be there, all the owners of these places. So
Yeah, it's a significant holiday.
it's
for
it's
people
substantial,
that
and most people would go home for quite a long time to celebrate the New Year together, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to me that we don't have more of those decorations there.
Yeah, it's weird. It is really just that lamp, and that's it.
It's not like they don't have holiday.
No, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's like they just have a different one. I don't know. Maybe future years they'll add something.
Yeah,
there,
because if
but-
you look at what they do in the rest of the Asian countries, it's just fireworks galore. It's
fireworks
just like,
everywhere.
yeah, it's
Straight up
fireworks.
Fireworks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they have the Lunar New Year for China is basically what they lean in really heavily here. So of course fireworks were invented in China in 600 to 900 AD. A Chinese alchemist mixed potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal to produce kind of a black flaky powder that was the first gunpowder. And they
For educational purposes only, this is not a tutorial.
do not do this.
Not like you can buy this stuff, you know?
And they poured it into hollowed out bamboo sticks, first of all. And then later they put them in stiff paper tubes, forming the first man-made fireworks, which is what we kind of see here with all of these little fireworks that are going off in this room.
What's kind of unique is they don't have every single one of the Lunar New Year animals. I kind of felt like they would, but I only see a dragon, and there's another one on this, but this video moves pretty quick and doesn't really look at it that much.
Yeah, they have a big old neon dragon there. And of course, the dragon is so symbolic in Chinese culture. And the dragon dance is an essential part of the Chinese festivals because they believe that it brings good luck to people. And so the longer the dragon is in the dance, the more luck it will bring to the community. And this actually dates back I went a tiny little rabbit hole on this. It dates back to the Han Dynasty, which you can see some of the art from that. And that is 202 BC to 9 AD was the first Han Dynasty. And that is where the first time different forms of the dragon dance were first described in ancient text. And so you can kind of see what they look like, the actual dances in one of the communities here. Yeah. So dragon dance, so that's why the dragon is really prominent because it's kind of symbolizes that good luck in the new year.
There you go.
Yep. Do you have anything else for that area, or are we moving on? Oh, wait, we forgot the cherry blossom scent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mention that.
In China has the cherry blossom scent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, what are the other 2 scents? There's cinnamon in South America and
Coconut.
the coconut.
Yeah,
Okay.
which we'll get to. Okay, so I have to admit that I could not find very much for this area beyond it's got these big, I think they're bells that light up. Did you get any information about this?
So I tried to look up the saying right here, this Shia-e, and the only thing that I could pull from is that it says that these are signs and banners, and one of them is from Asante, and that was the only thing that I got that was
it's
making
Afi.
a connection there.
Afi Shia-e.
Right, but what? No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that's from the is that the cultural language that is.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I think, because if you think French Canadian is our first one, Dutch is the other one. We get Hawaiian. We also get German, but Asante is the only one that's not listed. Hang on, I'll just Google real quick.
I tried to find what this was for a long time. I was like, are we talking Swahili? Are we like which language are, because there's so many vast languages in Africa, you know, and it's just like which one are we trying to refer to? And
Okay,
I couldn't find it.
Hang on. So based on this is, you and I have the same resource on this one. This is from Disneyland Resort News, Holidays at the Disneyland Resort. It's a small world holiday fun facts. And they mentioned that language, specifically dialects from French Canadian, Dutch, Asante, and Hawaiian. Looking up Asante real quick, this is coming from a ethnic group native to the Ashanti region of modern day Ghana. So
Okay.
Ghana is in Africa, so it's an African saying.
And figured it was an African saying, just couldn't figure out which country, which area of Africa. So, and then they have these gigantic, I think that they're bells. They light up to like lanterns, but they have things that are hanging from them. All of them do. And one of them I think was actually like dinging that I saw in a video. So
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. Yeah, no, they're bells. They have like
They're
little
bells.
underneath them. They do have like the little ringers on each one.
And beyond that, somebody was describing it as jungle jangles, which I thought was kind of cute way of describing
That's
this
a fun way to
scene.
say it.
Yeah, but I don't really have anything else for the scene. It's mostly just decorations and lights. Alrighty, on to South America.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
Mm-hmm.
Feliz Navidad. So this giant structure that says Feliz Navidad on it actually did change, because it didn't used to look like that. I only saw it in a really bad quality video that looked like this instead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like it was taken from Superstar Limo.
It does.
But it looks
Good way to put
exactly
it.
like the font from then.
So obviously they changed it, and they have these actual bells that are ringing, actively ringing, that you go under in this area. I have a couple. This is where you see the cinnamon scent comes in, which makes sense for both. This is South America and Mexico themed room here. But you see large poinsettias on either side of the boat. Poinsettia plants are native to Central America, especially an area of southern Mexico where they flower during the winter. The Aztecs used the leaves to make a purple dye for clothes and cosmetics, and the milky white sap was made into a medicine to treat fevers, and it has latex in it. So I didn't know that. So if you have a latex allergy, like, don't go near the poinsettia. Like, it's bad for you. It will
Poisonous for cats too.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. So be careful with your poinsettias. They're actually named after Joel Roberts Poinsett, who was the first ambassador from the USA to Mexico in 1825. Poinsett had some greenhouses and his plantations back in South Carolina. And when he was visiting Mexico in 1928, he collected some samples from his greenhouse and brought them back. And then he gave them to all his friends in botanical gardens, and the rest is history. And now becomes this tradition in America as well as Mexico. So pretty interesting there.
To give out deadly plants.
Yeah. I have information about piñatas. Are you ready for that? Do you want to talk piñatas at all?
Are piñatas specific to holidays?
Yes. So, okay. So I was
Let's
like,
do it.
where do pinatas come from? I was like, I don't know. I just know that my kids like them at home because the candy falls out of them and everybody's happy. But so the history of the pinata is from posadas, sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, which translates to inns. It's an annual tradition that runs from December 16th to 24th every year and includes music, food, and a pinata for the children. So during posadas, family, friends, and neighbors drop in on each other at night, asking for shelter and representation of Mary and Joseph's journey to Bethlehem ahead of Jesus' birth. So it's like dropping in like that. So
and then you hit Jesus out of the manger.
No.
With-
no.
I'm sorry. I have to cover my eyes before I hit Jesus out of the manger.
No, that's not it.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm listening.
So pinatas actually have an Eastern origin. They were basically Chinese, where they used a mud pot where they put seeds, and it was broken in the best moment of sowing to have good luck for the harvest. So that's where the tradition comes from. Marco Polo then brought the idea to Europe, and when Spanish missionaries arrived in Mexico, they used pinatas in services ahead of Christmas. It was around that same time that the Aztecs in Mexico celebrated one of their gods, so it was the same time of year. So it's a tradition. This is from Walther Bolsterly, a director of the Museum of Popular Art in Mexico City. So this is where this information comes from. He said it's a tradition that from the 16th of December, when the posadas start, until the 24th, people use piñatas to deck their posadas and have fun. Usually they have the 7-point star that looks like this as a traditional one. This represents the 7 deadly sins. So breaking the piñata breaks with the deadly sins in order to be able to receive Jesus in a more purified state. And then treats come out to reflect generosity.
Okay.
I thought that's pretty interesting.
That's
so
pretty awesome.
Eventually, basically, piñatas then migrated to other holidays and birthdays and all the other things, but it was specifically a Christmas time.
Take that, envy.
Sloth!
That's fun. I love that. That's so cool. Honestly, I would have never thought. That's so amazing. I love that. That is cool.
I'll tell you, I've learned
That's
so
really
much in
special.
this episode
Yeah,
about
this is
these
a great
like Christmas
episode.
traditions. Yeah.
It is.
And there's also on the other side, do you have things about the luminarias? Because I have a little thing about that as well.
Let me see if I have pictures of them.
This is just like a fun room to visit because there was so much here.
Here we go. We used to do it. So when I was a kid, we did luminaries. I grew up Christian, and my parents, all they said was to like light the runway for Santa. I have no idea the religious connotations for them. But I know our church would sell them, and our Boy Scout troop would sell them or give them out to neighbors as well. So,
okay, so I have just a little tiny bit of history for this. So, luminarias are a tradition of New Mexico, placing a candle in a paper bag weighed down the bottom with sand. Early versions of this tradition were actually little bonfires that look like this. So some people will say this is a luminaria. They're bonfires made of crisscross pinion branches, which were built in at 3-foot high squares. They're typically arranged, both versions are typically arranged in rows to celebrate they were typically arranged in rows to create elaborate displays. And the hope among Roman Catholics is that the lights will guide the spirit of Christ child to one's home. So
see, that's what I'm talking about. You like the way for Santa.
Yeah. Depends on what you believe, I suppose.
Yeah, that's,
it's the idea of leading something to your home, yes, is the idea behind it. So, and you'll see them in all different variations too. You'll see them with designs in them in these paper bags. But if you're going to do this, I suggest you use an electric candle, not a real one, just for safety purposes. Just saying.
Ooh, don't agree with this.
Don't put fire on your tree. Don't put fire on your lawn. Don't put poisonous flowers where your cats will eat them.
I didn't realize that I was co-hosting with Scrooge. Bah humbug. You know, you can't have a little fire. You can't dash some sins in, you know? What do you call it? We had always used paper until, like, in our neighborhood, several of them fell over and, no joke, like, would light up. And then they started using milk cartons, like jugs, like the plastic jugs, and you would cut a hole out. But then if those started lighting up, it was just like noxious fumes in the air. So eventually it did end up turning to a lot of people went to the electric ones, and we just were like, yeah, we're not doing it.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for Mexico or South America before we leave?
No.
Okay. On to the next.
Cool. That was so cool. That was
Isn't
good.
that neat?
I like those. Those were really neat. I love this.
That's not even like my favorite thing in this episode. So on to the next. I know. This episode made me so happy. I learned so much. So
see, and you were snuffing it. You were like, "There's not enough, dude."
Oh, there was a moment I was going to contact you and be like, I can't. And I was just like, no, I'm going to look into all these different cultures and traditions because all of the arts and crafts and stuff. So let's head into the South Pacific where we see some mermaids. And what are they singing there, Kirk?
They're singing jingle shells.
Jingle shells, jingle all the way. Yes.
Yep. And this is where we get that coconut scent rolling in.
Yeah. They used to have just mermaids here. Of course, now we see Ariel as well. And there's a big note that says for Santa, and it's pointing to a fish. I never actually looked at what it was pointing to. It looks like it's pointing to a pile of fish.
It's like rainbow trout. Weird.
No, I'm like, maybe it's the coral. Maybe it's the tree. Oh, it's a tree. I get it. I get it.
You put it under the coral tree.
Yeah, it has fish under the tree.
Yeah, but why are the fish there?
They're presents instead of cookies. You get a fish.
You get.
It seems a little morbid from mermaids.
It's not that morbid. I mean, have you seen what they tried to do to Wendy in the Mermaid Lagoon?
It's true. They're a little brutal.
They're lucky they and Pete is laughing the whole time. He's like having a great time. Wendy's like, whoa, and they're like, we were just trying to drown her. It's like, bro,
they are mean.
What is wrong with you guys? Everybody's got such like a big crush on Peter Pan that like they want no part of competition with Wendy. Tank Wendy Bird, get her out of the sky. The mermaids, we'll take her down deep.
Well, Peter Pan's a bit of a player. Like, to be honest, like, he's like,
he's immature. He hasn't grown up. What do you expect?
He's just like over there in the Native American camp doing whatever he's doing over there and turning red. And then he goes, got the mermaids going on. Just saying. And then he's got Wendy.
He's a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's making all the mistakes over and over because he'll never mature.
It's always an excuse. Anyway, so into the South Pacific room.
I don't agree with his behavior.
No, we don't condone Peter Pan's behavior.
Yeah, or Tank, or the mermaids. I don't condone any of those guys.
There's a lot of bad behavior in that movie, to be fair.
There really is.
Yes. So here in the South Pacific room, we are coming up on one of the most beloved aspects of it, and that is, of course, Lilo and Stitch, and more particularly what is on the surfboard with Lilo and Stitch, which is a tiny bobblehead Elvis. And he didn't used to be a bobblehead. This is what he looks like right now. But he used to be just a figurine. And I actually have a picture of that, which is I kind of like him better as the figurine.
The figurine's better than the bobblehead.
He's like crooning. So, yeah, he's like on a pedestal too, which makes it like that much cheesier, which is funny. So this sent me on a huge Elvis rabbit hole, okay? This is, I think, my favorite. So apparently, Elvis has been in the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay every year as well. At least. And I was like, no way. There's no way that's true. And then it's possible he was also in Interventions and they hid him as well. So I actually have pictures of him hidden in, this is in with some pumpkins in Haunted Mansion Holiday. It's like a portrait of him rather than a figurine. And then you can see this one's really clear. There he is. It's the king.
Now, why were they putting him all over the place?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. So this is actually something I'm actively
investigating. This kind of makes somewhat sense because I don't know if you remember how many films that Elvis made that involved the beach or involved Hawaii or surfing. Like there's lots of
Blue
Elvis
Christmas.
surfing.
Blue Christmas is also, like it's such an iconic Christmas song. Okay, but before he was on the surfboard with Lilo and Stitch, he was also hidden in Small World on the tree.
Ew.
Look at his face. It's in the middle of the tree. Like, what is
He looks
this?
like he's in Return to Oz. He looks like a wheeler. That is scary.
It's something.
That's creepy.
And so when I went down this rabbit hole, people just started saying like, oh no, I've seen Elvis here and here and here, like as a joke. Okay. So they're just like, but did you see the Hatbox Ghost Elvis? And then somebody made this.
Oh, that's funny.
It's Elvis's head in a hatbox with Elvis holding the hatbox.
Don't be cruel.
Anyway, so I'm not sure if Elvis is still in the building.
Yeah, he
for
may
Haunted
not
Mansion
have
Holiday.
left the building.
I'm asking a friend, and they're investigating with the team that does those overlays and asking the question: A, where it started, do we have any idea of its origins? And B, is it still happening? Because obviously it's still in Small World. So I'll let you guys know when I hear an update from that. So
Love it.
what else is in this room?
Yeah. The other big thing that's really recognizable is each one of the reindeer have their own individual, almost like tiki mask kind of vibe for Blitzen and Cupid and Prancer and Donder and Dasher. Yeah.
Donder? Did you say Donner? Donner?
Donner.
These used to be on the other side of the room, just FYI. But then when they changed the next room from a rainforest room and they moved the rainforest to this area, they also moved the reindeer to the other side. So usually you would see Santa holding the Mele Kalikimaka sign, and then you would see the reindeer after that, but they had to move the reindeer because of that change. And you also used to see this gigantic Santa heads that were kind of made out of like thatch or something. Like almost like gigantic Santa masks.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah, they're really interesting. Yeah, I don't have anything else for this room. Do you have anything?
I do. So I've always wondered, before Bing Crosby, where did Mele Kalikimaka come from? Because I see this all the time, especially in like Trader Sam's. They use it all the time when that gets its like Christmas overlay here in Walt Disney World, that enchanted tiki bar that we have. And then there's always like, it's always referenced in beachy and Polynesian snacks and things like for the holidays. I'm like, what is this? What is happening? Where did this come from? And so this is kind of like the Americanized translation of the Hawaiian term for Merry Christmas. So Bing Crosby has that very famous song in the 1950s, but this actually stems from the very first time it was ever published was when in a Hawaiian publication. So hang on, let me flip this around. And this is from December 23rd, 1904. And it was, so all of this is in Hawaiian. So a lot of like the consonants get switched out. Like there aren't a lot of like S's. S's get changed out to K's. The Hawaiian version of Merry Christmas, Mele Kalikimaka, did not surface until 1904 when it was printed in the Ka Nupipa Kuakoa, and it first proclaimed the national holiday by King Kamehameha IV in 1862. But in this actual article, if you have to like scroll all the way down, I actually found where it was listed in here. Yes, it is very, very tiny text. But in here, all the way up, if I scroll into this section right here, you can actually see this is the very first time it's ever referenced in text. So then I go, okay, well, I can't translate everything. So let's see if I can just translate this last paragraph, which I did. So the first time we're ever seeing Mele Kalikimaka.
Maka. Mele Kalikimaka is to say. Sorry.
No, you're good. Well, good. Here, can you pronounce everything else?
No.
So the translation says, Therefore, in the giving of a certain time for reflection, there is no lack of obtaining the knowledge that comprehends everything in consideration from the territory of Hawaii in its governmental position and in the multitude of the territory, equally with the enlightened lands all around the world. And when the Friday of this Christmas arrives, the understanding of independence, the joyful entrance of all the people of the Pacific, and freedom will be obtained without restriction or hindrance. Therefore, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. I thought it was really cool when I found the, it was like, I was like diving through microfiche when I was like, okay, I can find this article. It
I
only took
love
me,
that.
like, 20 minutes, but I found it.
It's my favorite. I
Yeah.
love looking through microfiche.
Mm-hmm.
It's also fun to say, microfiche.
Yeah, microfiche.
As opposed to the microfish that are under that tree for Santa. They're part of the room.
Oh, they looked full size. Santa's a big dude. He needs to eat a lot.
They were big fish, actually.
They were.
All right. Anything else in this room before we head on over?
Nada, limonada.
Okay, so this next room used to be the rainforest room. You see now the rainforest is here in the end of this room, but it used to be in the other room. And so this is where they had the staging area from 1997 to 2008. They had a staging area. So they just put up black curtains to hide the staging area. And they hung these illuminated bells from the ceiling and then put up some words that mean peace in different languages from around the world. So that's what used to be in this room until they added this kind of Spirit of America room is what it's called. So we do see ho-ho holiday sign with a silhouette of Santa and reindeer above it kind of at the end of the room. And then we have the cactus that's decorated with a sheriff star for Woody, with lanterns and lights. And then we also see some Native Americans holding a popcorn garland. And this, I went a little tiny rabbit hole for this one. So I was like, why are they holding a popcorn garland? And where did popcorn garlands come from for Christmas, right?
I don't know about the holiday, but they definitely taught folks coming to America that you could pop corn and maize.
They did. So the practice of popping corn was common among Native Americans even hundreds of years ago. It dates back to the Aztec people in the early 16th century. During ceremonies, young women would perform a dance while wearing thick popcorn garlands, and the Aztecs also used popcorn to decorate ceremonial headdresses and ornaments on statues of their gods. So Christopher Columbus and his crew were the first Westerners to see popcorn, as natives of the West Indies exchanged goods for popcorn headdresses. By 1612, French explorers documented the popping of corn using hot sand by the Iroquois, who consumed the popcorn in soup and beer. Interesting way to eat popcorn, which I've never tried. And then the practice of stringing popcorn became popularized in 1842 with American colonists in Williamsburg, Virginia. So it sounds like it was more first strung by the Native Americans. It was kind of carried throughout the year. The popcorn in general is carried in there, and then it became popularized by Americans. And then German Americans actually dyed the popcorn and added fruit and nuts like cranberries because they had a long shelf life, so that you could eat it and have a treat every once in a while, like salty and sweet snacks. So that is where the history of the popcorn string comes from.
That's fun.
I actually do have just a picture, too, of what it looked like way back in, like, Victorian times, like old popcorn on trees.
That baby. You need to scroll in on that baby. Oh, boy.
He's undecided about the popcorn.
He's undecided about a lot of things.
Well, here's another one, too. Apparently, like, taking a picture of your baby with the popcorn tree. They're all confused.
Put him next to the popcorn, dear. Put on your Sunday's best. It's time to take popcorn pictures.
The only other thing I have in this room is the dream catchers that are actually hanging above the Native Americans on the ceiling. Dream catchers, of course, they capture all the dreams and filter out the bad ones. So it lets in only the good ones and protects people from evil. That's the belief behind it. The good dreams find their way through the center of the circle while the bad get caught up. And then with the first sign of daylight, they disappear. They're traditionally hung above babies' cradles to protect them and help them sleep because they're mesmerized by like the feathers that would, sway in the wind above them. And then larger dream catchers were hung on the head of the household to allow good dreams and thoughts throughout the family. So it's very symbolic there. So not necessarily like a Christmas tradition, but it's a really fun tradition, family tradition. So I don't have anything else for this room. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
On to the finale, the grand finale.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we hear Deck the Halls. And we didn't actually talk about the music that much. I do have just a quick note about the music, because you quickly mentioned the Sherman Brothers. But Small World, of course, was written as a slow ballad song. And the original concept was for Small World was for all the dolls to sing the national anthems of their own countries. But when they started recording the voices to do that, it was like a huge disaster. This is what Richard Sherman actually says about it. He said, if you walked through the mock-up, the first 3 or 4 groups were kind of charming and delightful, and all of a sudden you heard nothing. It was all squishing together, and it was cacophony. And so Bob and I were called in to come up with a simple song that could be translated into any language. It had to have sort of simple repetitions to it. We were told, like the simplest possible song, but saying the most you possibly can. It was a salute to the children of the world, and it was called UNICEF's Salute to the Children of the World, which you mentioned before. That was the working title. And we said, well, we can come up with something better than that. And he said, well, yeah, if you can, but remember, it's about the small children of the world, the hope of the future. He gave us that to start with, and so we came up with the concept, it's a small world after all. Let's not blow each other up. Let's learn to respect each other and love each other. And that's what we were saying without saying those words. We just said, it's a small world after all. It's a world of laughter and a world of tears, a world of hopes and a world of fears. There's so much that we share that it's time we're aware it's a small world after all. That's what we said in the song. And if you want to hear it as a jingle, you can, he's like, you want to shoot us. But if you hear it slowly and hear the words, you say, hey, it is a prayer for peace, isn't it? And that's what we wrote. It became, I'm told, the most performed song in the world, with all the parks that are playing it all the time. And he says that makes him feel very happy. But that's what I wanted to emphasize here, is that this room really is a room to emphasize that idea of peace. And they really bring it home in the Christmas season, this idea of peace. Because what you see is the color scheme in this room has always been white and gold and silver. It's different in other versions, but in this Disneyland version, it's meant to symbolize the innocence and purity and preciousness of children. And so they really just dove into that with the decor here. They have white garlands and they have gold bows and gold and silver ornaments. And they really just emphasize this idea of peace on earth in this room. Sorry, that was a lot of talking, but
No, that was great. Yeah, because we pretty much, you get a small little portion of It's a Small World in a transition period right before you get into the South Pacific area. But it is mainly Jingle Bells, and then
this is Deck the Halls here.
This changes to Deck the Halls.
It's Deck the Halls combined with It's a Small World after all. So those are the 3 songs you hear for most of it. And some places they do sing it in their native language, depending if you can listen real carefully. But and we did mention that it used to be a big tree in that beginning part there. This is what the tree used to look like it was like a multi-layered white tree. And then they changed it in 2011. They changed it to a giant illuminated snowman with the frozen word Happy Holidays instead.
Yeah, that way to take the connotation out of just Christianity and a Christmas tree and turn it to something multicultural.
Yeah, it's just holidays in general. There is a Peace on Earth sign at the end that has children from all different nations holding hands while standing on top of a globe. And then, of course, they have doves around them like a sign of peace.
Which, in the grand opening of this attraction in Disneyland, they released a bunch of doves. It was like at least 100 doves. I watched the opening ceremony. It was really cool. One thing that I thought was really interesting, again, this is like for another one, but just real quick, they had all of these children of the world bring water from their individual country, and they poured it into, what did they call this? It was like the rivers or
Seas?
seven
Seven
seas is what they
Mhm.
called this, I guess. So yeah, but they all were pouring in there, and then I don't know what Walt had because it wasn't playing the audio of what he was talking or what he was speaking, but he had like a canteen, and then one of the dignitaries just like had their hands like it was clearly like photo op. So like Walt is clearly pouring this thing, and this other guy just like has his hand, and you're like, but they wrote it together. So
Yeah.
I did no research beyond that, but yeah, it was
Well,
pretty cool.
we'll have to go over when we do Small World as a
Yeah.
series because
Yeah.
there'll be lots of details for that. The only other thing I have is the goodbye room that's at the end. Used to have Christmas cards in it, so they used to change them to actual giant Christmas cards, and they don't do that anymore. They just leave them like they are, just saying goodbye in different languages now. But they do add some little Christmassy touches to it, some fake snow and decorations. It's a little sad that they don't have the actual Christmas cards anymore. Those were kind of fun.
Yeah.
Um, just as we leave this episode here, I will mention that last year they did something really fun for the 25th anniversary, and they added the number 25 throughout the attraction as a scavenger hunt. So they had 12 on the inside for the 12 days of Christmas and 1 on the outside. And so everybody was looking for 25s all season, which was super fun.
I love when they do simple things like that because it gives like, especially in a place like Disneyland where you get so many repeat customers and very loyal Magic Key holders, it gives you a reason to enjoy those things multiple times rather than just like, and besides, this is like a high capacity attraction that can handle that. This definitely is one of those ones, and I'm sure during the holidays it probably pops up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it didn't have really long waits beyond like 20, 25 minutes max.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the only other thing I'd mention is that, do you remember when this flooded in 2021 and it was like a big deal?
It was a big deal because they thought they weren't going to be able to do the holiday, and in fact, they had to like drain everything. They had to change out some of the mechanisms, and yeah,
They thought all the things that apparently, from what I heard, it was like they were refilling it after they had installed this. You know, they emptied out the trough that it goes through. They'd emptied it and they were refilling it, and something about the shut off or whatever wasn't working, or like the alarm was going because it was overflowing, but nobody heard it or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, but this they thought it was not going to be open for the Christmas season, so they started advertising it as like, come see the lights on the outside. But cast members work like pretty much around the clock, and in work that should have taken months to repair all that equipment, they got it done in weeks so they could open it for the Christmas season, which to me is magic in its own way, that those cast members went above and beyond to really get that open for the holidays to make people happy, which was
yeah. Well, because in the very first year that they did this, it was supposed to only run until January 4th. And then they extended it all the way through January 25th because everyone loved it so much in the start of 97. So 98, they kept on extending it, which I think is cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful attraction if you get a chance to go on it. Even if you're not a huge Small World fan, I would say it's a very magical ride with all of the lights added to it.
I don't know.
It's worth
I
it.
think if you've never experienced Small World in Disneyland, then you have never really experienced Small World. Because the one in Walt Disney World is nowhere near as good as the one in Disneyland. And I know people got really upset when they plussed it and added more intellectual property for kids, but leaving nostalgia behind, the attraction is absolute perfection. And the fact that it gets such a robust holiday overlay and an outside projection show, flawless.
Yeah, and it's outside projection show, and the dolls around the clock too get a little plussing. They get a little decorations, and
That's so cool.
then they also do it for fireworks too. And they have, when they do that, they make it snow. They do that thing when they make it snow in the castle. They do kind of like an illuminating ceremony. They do the same thing at Small World, and they make it snow there as well. So it's just such a magical area. Make sure you go see it when it lights up, because it's so fun to be standing there like when they light it for the evening.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that tradition. So anyway, anything else before we wrap it up?
Wrap it up just like a present. This gift is done.
Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory. We hope that you got to learn a few new things about some Christmas traditions that maybe you didn't know before. I know that I enjoyed learning a lot of things that I had no idea where they came from, but I love them about Christmas. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts before we leave here?
I will bash my sins out of my body using a pinata this year. It's so much fun. I love this. This is a great episode.
Yeah, and always as a safety reminder, don't put candles on your trees or in paper bags in your lawn, and be safe these holidays. Thank you for joining.
Words to live by.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you next time for Distory.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.